Well, despite the crowd, your sermon got great reviews.
That's because it was all about love. Love is great. Love is redemptive.
And then stepped out of line to embrace his brother Louis, his brother that lives in Florida, who traveled here to Vatican City to celebrate.
The early morning sunlight bathed St. Peter's Square in a warm, golden glow as Pope Leo XIV wrapped up his first week as the spiritual leader of the Catholic Church. Robert Francis Pvost, now Pope Leo XIV, had only just begun to adjust to his monumental role after being elected on May 8th. At 69, the Chicago-born pontiff carried the weight of his position as the first American pope, following the passing of Pope Francis in late April. Could this be a sign that God continues to speak through the unexpected? If this video has reached you today, it might not be by chance. Before we dive into this remarkable story, take a moment to like, subscribe, and let us know where you're tuning in from. Trust your faith. It may be guiding you to hear this message today. As Pope Leo XIV walked through the Vatican's quiet halls, accompanied by a small security detail, he glanced over his schedule. A visit to a homeless shelter in central Rome had been added at his request. Despite his advisor's suggestions to take things slow, he insisted on making time for this visit, feeling an urgent need to connect with those in need. "Your Holiness, the car is ready," Cardinal Matteo said, ushering him toward the exit. "Thank you," Pope Leo XIV replied, smiling warmly. "This visit means a lot to me." A journey through Rome. The papal motorcade wound its way through the narrow streets of Rome, and as Pope Leo XIV gazed out the window, his thoughts turned to his childhood in Chicago's South Side. His parents had instilled in him core values of service, compassion, and humility, guiding his journey from a young math student to a missionary in Peru, and now to the pinnacle of the Catholic Church. As the car came to a stop, the driver announced, "We're here, Your Holiness." The motorcade halted in front of a modest building with peeling paint. Pope Leo XIV stepped out and was greeted by Sister Maria, the director of the shelter. Little did the Pope know, this visit would reconnect him with a piece of his past that he thought was lost forever. Sister Maria led him through the shelter, introducing him to the volunteers and residents. Pope Leo XIV moved with genuine interest, stopping to speak with each person, asking their names, and listening intently to their stories. "This is our dining area," Sister Maria explained. "We serve around 200 meals daily." In the corner, an elderly man with a weathered face and salt and pepper beard sat hunched over a bowl of soup. There was something about his posture that seemed strangely familiar. "Who is that gentleman?" Pope Leo XIV inquired. "His name is Michael," Sister Maria replied. "He's been with us for about 8 months, a brilliant man. He used to teach history at the university, but after a series of personal tragedies, he lost everything." Pope Leo XIV approached the man slowly. He didn't look up, lost in his simple meal. "Michael," the Pope said gently. The moment their eyes met, a shock of recognition flashed across both their faces. The spoon clattered onto the bowl. Bobby Pvost," Michael whispered, his voice filled with disbelief, momentarily forgetting he was speaking to the Pope. Pope Leo XIV's heart skipped a beat. There, standing before him, was Michael Donovan, the man he had once known so well. "My God, it's really you." His voice was thick with emotion. Sister Maria, the shelter's director, stood off to the side, utterly confused, as the leader of the Catholic Church stood frozen, facing a homeless man who had just addressed him by his childhood name. "I don't understand," Sister Maria whispered to her colleague. "They know each other?" Michael slowly stood, unsure of the proper protocol. Should he bow, kneel, or simply remain standing? Trembling slightly, he did none of these things. He simply stood, uncertain, but deeply moved. "We grew up together in Chicago," Pope Leo XIV explained. his voice breaking slightly with emotion. Michael lived 3 houses down from mine. We were inseparable from first grade through high school. The memories came flooding back as the Pope turned to his childhood friend. You were the one who helped me understand algebra when everyone else had given up on me. Michael's eyes welled up with tears. And you were the one who convinced me I could become a historian, even when my father insisted it was a waste of time. Pope Leo XIV, unable to contain his feelings, waved away his entourage, requesting privacy. He sat down across from Michael, the wooden bench creaking under his weight as his white robes rustled with the movement. A shared past and divergent futures. "What happened, my friend?" Pope Leo XIV asked softly. Michael's story tumbled out in broken sentences. Once a respected academic with a family, his life had unraveled with tragic speed. His wife's cancer diagnosis had triggered a devastating spiral. Medical bills, alcoholism, the loss of his job, and eventually his family. He now found himself living in a shelter, a far cry from the life he once imagined. "I never thought I'd end up here," Michael confessed, sweeping his arm to indicate the shelter. "And I certainly never imagined I'd be having soup with the Pope." For a brief moment, they were no longer the Pope and a homeless man. They were simply Bobby and Mike, 2 friends from Chicago whose lives had taken unexpected and unimaginable turns. As Michael finished his story, Pope Leo XIV sat in silence, his thoughts heavy. His security team exchanged worried glances. This unscheduled personal exchange was a stark deviation from the carefully planned itinerary of the papal visit. "Do you remember Mrs. Abernathy's 5th grade class?" Pope Leo XIV asked after a moment, his voice quiet but steady. "When I was picked last for every team because I was terrible at sports?" Michael chuckled softly. "And I told Joey Mancini I'd never help him with his homework again if he didn't pick you." "You stood up for me then," the Pope said. "Now it's my turn." Turning to Sister Maria, Pope Leo XIV made a decisive request. "I'd like to speak with the Vatican press secretary, please." Within minutes, the Pope's staff gathered around him, visibly concerned about the unexpected turn of events. The press secretary leaned in, her tone cautious. "Your Holiness, we should return to the Vatican. The diplomatic corps is waiting." "They'll wait longer," Pope Leo XIV replied firmly. "I have an old friend to attend to." To everyone's surprise, Pope Leo XIV canceled all of his remaining appointments for the day. Instead, he spent hours reconnecting with Michael, sharing stories of their childhood and the diverging paths their lives had taken. The intimate, unscheduled conversation was a striking moment of humanity in the midst of the Pope's demanding role. As evening approached, Pope Leo XIV made an unprecedented request. "I want Michael to dine with me at the Vatican tonight." The request threw the papal staff into disarray, but Leo was insistent. "This man knew me before I was Robert Francis Pvost, before I was a priest or bishop or cardinal, and certainly before I was Pope Leo XIV. Today, he reminds me of who I truly am." By nightfall, news of the Pope's decision had spread like wildfire across Rome. The Italian media buzzed with reports that the newly elected American pontiff had brought a homeless man to the Vatican for dinner. In the Apostolic Palace, Pope Leo XIV and Michael sat at a small table in the Pope's private dining room, an intimate setting far removed from the grand formal dining halls that typically hosted high-profile guests. "I still can't believe this," Michael said, looking around in awe at the Renaissance art adorning the walls. "The last time we shared a meal, it was pizza at Giordano's after graduation." Leo smiled warmly at the memory. Life takes unexpected turns. Just 5 days ago, I was Cardinal Pvost. Now I'm expected to guide over 1 billion Catholics. Michael studied his old friend closely, his voice filled with concern. "Are you scared?" A moment of reflection and courage. The honesty in Michael's question, untainted by the reverence or formality that now marked every interaction of Pope Leo XIV, caught him off guard. It was refreshingly simple, yet deeply profound. "Are you scared?" "Terrified," Pope Leo XIV admitted, his voice steady but laced with vulnerability. "But also at peace. It's the same feeling I had when I first left for Peru as a missionary. Fear and purpose can coexist." As they shared the humble meal, Vatican officials observed the scene with mixed reactions. Some saw a security risk, others a potential public relations issue, but a few saw something more profound, a moment of true humanity from their newly appointed leader, a man not afraid to show his heart. After dinner, Pope Leo XIV made another unexpected decision. He announced that Michael would stay in a guest apartment within the Vatican while they worked together to rebuild his life. One Vatican official objected, concerned with the proper channels for charitable works. "There are proper channels for charitable works," Pope Leo XIV responded firmly, "and we will use them all. But tonight, this is simply about helping my friend." The following morning, as Pope Leo XIV prepared for his first public audience in St. Peter's Square, the news of his dinner with Michael exploded on social media. Conservative Catholic commentators criticized the Pope for bringing a stranger into the Vatican residence, while others praised the act as a powerful demonstration of Christian charity. "Your Holiness," suggested the Vatican Communications Director, "perhaps we should issue a statement explaining the situation." "What is there to explain?" Pope Leo XIV replied. "The Gospel tells us what to do when we encounter those in need. I'm simply trying to live by those words." Meanwhile, Michael awoke in a simple but comfortable Vatican guest room. He was still disoriented by the whirlwind changes in his life. A kind-faced nun brought him fresh clothes and informed him that the Pope had arranged for him to meet with Vatican social services. "The Pope has also requested your presence at this morning's audience if you feel up to it," the nun added. An hour later, Michael found himself seated in a reserved section near the front of St. Peter's Square, witnessing the thousands of people who had gathered to cheer the arrival of his childhood friend, now the leader of the Catholic Church. Pope Leo XIV began his address with the traditional greetings, but then he veered from the script. "Yesterday, Divine Providence arranged for me to reconnect with a dear friend from my youth," the Pope said, his voice carrying across the square. "In him, I saw not just a man in need, but Christ himself asking for recognition." The crowd fell silent as Pope Leo XIV continued. "Many have asked why I would bring a homeless man to the Vatican. I ask instead, how could I not? The Church is not a monument to perfection, but a hospital for the broken, and we are all broken in different ways." As the Pope spoke, several Vatican aides noticed Michael quietly weeping in his seat. "My friend Michael once helped a shy boy from Chicago believe in himself," Pope Leo XIV continued. "That boy eventually found his way to the priesthood, while Michael's path led him to academia, family, and eventually hardship, but God never abandoned either of us." The Cardinal's concerns. Following the audience, Pope Leo XIV convened with his Council of Cardinals. The conversation was tense, as many expressed their concerns about the attention his actions had generated. "Your Holiness, while charitable works are fundamental to our mission, there are concerns about setting such a personal precedent," Cardinal Domenico said cautiously. Pope Leo XIV met his concerns with quiet confidence. "I understand your concerns," he replied, "but I believe the Church must move beyond institutional charity and toward personal connection. Michael isn't a project or a symbol. He's a human being created in God's image." Later that day, the Pope invited Michael to join him for a private walk through the Vatican gardens. Away from the cameras and aides, they spoke as old friends once again. "They think you're being impulsive," Michael observed. "Perhaps I am," Pope Leo XIV admitted, "but sometimes the Holy Spirit works through our impulses." By the third day of Michael's stay, Pope Leo XIV had organized a comprehensive plan for his friend's recovery. Vatican social services arranged for medical care, including treatment for Michael's alcohol dependency. The Pope's personal secretary even reached out to Michael's estranged children, now living in Boston and Denver. "I can't accept all this," Michael protested as Leo explained the efforts. "There are millions of people in worse situations than mine." Leo smiled gently. "And the Church must work tirelessly for them all. But at this moment, you are the person God has placed in my path." That afternoon, the Pope invited Michael to accompany him on a visit to a pediatric hospital. Though initially reluctant, Michael soon found himself deeply moved, offering compassionate words to parents of sick children, words that came from his own experience of hardship. "One of the hospital's doctors approached Pope Leo XIV, said one of the aides. "Your friend has a gift for connecting with these families." "He always did," Leo replied, smiling. "He just forgot it for a while." That evening, as they sat down for dinner, Michael surprised Pope Leo XIV with a request. "I want to repay your kindness by doing something meaningful," Michael said. "Not just accepting help, but giving back." Leo studied his old friend thoughtfully. "What do you have in mind?" "I was a professor for 20 years, Michael replied. "Maybe I could teach again. Perhaps work with disadvantaged students, or even help at one of the homeless shelters. I need purpose, not just rescue." Pope Leo XIV smiled, recognizing the same determined spirit he'd known in their youth. "You always had a way of seeing beyond your circumstances." 1 week after their reunion, Michael stood at the entrance of the shelter where Pope Leo XIV had found him, not as a resident, but as a volunteer. He wore clean clothes and carried with him a renewed sense of purpose. "Professor Donovan, welcome back," Sister Maria greeted him warmly. "Just Michael, please," he insisted. "I'm here to help with the literacy program we discussed." Inside the Vatican, Pope Leo XIV was meeting with the Papal Foundation overseeing charitable outreach. He proposed a new initiative inspired by Michael's journey, a program designed to identify homeless individuals with professional backgrounds and help them use their skills to serve others while rebuilding their own lives. "We'll call it the Bridge Program," the Pope explained. "It bridges past achievement with future possibility, and it connects those who have fallen through society's cracks back to community." That evening, Pope Leo XIV received an unexpected call. Michael's daughter, Emily, had responded to the Vatican's outreach and was on the line from Boston. When Pope Leo XIV shared this news with Michael, the older man was overcome with emotion. "I haven't spoken to her in 5 years," Michael whispered, his voice thick with regret. "I was too ashamed." "Shame keeps us isolated," Pope Leo XIV told him gently. "Courage brings us back to connection. Your journey back begins now, old friend." 2 weeks after their serendipitous reunion, Pope Leo XIV stood before a small gathering in a newly renovated section of the homeless shelter. The Bridge program was being inaugurated, with Michael as its first success story and a key advisor. Media from around the world had gathered to witness this extraordinary initiative, born from a simple, unexpected encounter between the leader of the Catholic Church and his childhood friend. In the scriptures, Jesus tells us that what we do for the least of our brothers and sisters, we do for him, Pope Leo XIV said during the dedication ceremony. But today, I want to challenge that understanding. There are no least among us, only those whose value and potential we have failed to recognize. Michael, now standing tall beside his daughter Emily, was hardly recognizable as the broken man who had once hunched over a bowl of soup in the shelter. Their reconciliation, still tender, was real. This program isn't just about helping people who are homeless, the Pope continued. It's about restoring dignity, purpose, and connection. It's about recognizing that any of us could find ourselves lost and in need of a helping hand. After the ceremony, as they shared a quiet moment away from the crowds, Michael turned to his old friend. "You know," he said, "when I saw you walk into that shelter 2 weeks ago, I thought I was hallucinating. The boy I knew from Chicago, now Pope Leo XIV. The Pope smiled. God works in mysterious ways. Perhaps he allowed our paths to diverge so dramatically, only to bring us together again when we both needed the reminder of where we came from. "And where are we going?" Michael asked. "Forward," Pope Leo XIV replied simply. "Together, as the Church has always been meant to move, forward, together." The ripple effect of compassion. As the days passed, the momentum of Pope Leo XIV's actions continued to reverberate through the Vatican and beyond, touching lives in ways even he could not have predicted. Michael's transformation was only the beginning of something far greater, a movement that began with one individual but soon spread to countless others. The Pope's decision to personally invest in Michael's life was not an isolated incident. It was a profound statement about the nature of leadership and service. Pope Leo XIV was leading by example, showing that the role of the Church was not simply to maintain power or uphold traditions, but to reach out to the broken and forgotten, to meet them where they were, and walk with them toward restoration. As the Bridge program began to take shape, it became clear that Michael's story was not unique. Many people had fallen through the cracks of society, people with dreams, skills, and potential who had been discarded and forgotten. They weren't just the homeless. They were former teachers, doctors, engineers, and artists, people whose lives had been derailed by personal tragedies, addiction, or systemic failures. Pope Leo XIV's vision for the program was to offer them not just shelter, but a lifeline, a way back to the life they once knew or could have had. For Michael, the work of rebuilding his own life was far from over, but with each passing day, he grew more confident. He was no longer the man who had stumbled into a shelter with nothing but his regrets. He was now part of something bigger, something that could help him heal while helping others at the same time. His work at the shelter, helping to teach literacy and offering guidance to those in need, gave him a renewed sense of purpose. He was making a difference, and with that, he found healing in ways he hadn't thought possible. A new kind of leadership. As the program expanded, the Pope's leadership began to inspire others within the Church and outside it. The program was not about charity as a transactional act, but rather as a relational one. Pope Leo XIV emphasized that the Church's role was to be a sanctuary for all people, especially those who had been marginalized. The Church wasn't just a building, it was a community, and it was meant to be a safe place where all were welcome, regardless of their past or their circumstances. Cardinal Domenico, who had initially expressed reservations about the personal nature of the Pope's actions, came to see the depth of Pope Leo XIV's vision. "I was wrong," he admitted one day after a meeting about the Bridge program. "This is not just about offering a handout. It's about offering a second chance. It's about showing the world that even in our most broken places, there is hope." The cardinals and Vatican officials who had once questioned the Pope's approach were slowly beginning to see the wisdom in his actions. The Bridge program was a radical shift in how charity was understood in the Church. It wasn't about giving from a place of superiority. It was about sharing in the human experience. It was about acknowledging the pain of others, not as a distant observer, but as someone who had walked through the same struggles and emerged stronger. And as the program continued to grow, it wasn't just the homeless who were impacted. The very structure of the Vatican's outreach was being transformed. Instead of focusing solely on traditional charity work, the Church began to place an emphasis on empowerment. Volunteers from various professional backgrounds started to join the program, eager to lend their expertise and make a real difference. The once siloed charitable efforts within the Church began to interconnect, creating a network of support that reached people in new and innovative ways. The impact of the Bridge program went far beyond what Pope Leo XIV had imagined when he first made the decision to bring Michael into the Vatican. Media outlets around the world took notice, and the story of Michael's transformation sparked conversations in communities across the globe. People who had long been disconnected from the church began to see it in a new light, no longer as an institution obsessed with power, but as a force for good, actively involved in the lives of those who needed it most. One of the most significant outcomes of the program was the increased awareness around homelessness and poverty, not just in Rome, but across the world. Michael's journey served as a powerful reminder that homelessness was not just about a lack of housing, it was about a lack of connection. Many of those living on the streets were isolated, not just from society, but from the people they once knew, the people they could have been. The Bridge program focused on restoring that connection, not just to a roof over one's head, but to the people, the community, and ultimately, to a sense of purpose. As Michael continued his work at the shelter, he began to see faces that mirrored his own. Men and women who had lost their way, but still carried a spark of hope. He worked with them patiently, showing them that their worth wasn't tied to their circumstances. He shared his own story, not as one of despair, but as one of redemption. And slowly, those he mentored began to transform as well, finding their own paths forward. Many were able to secure jobs, reconnect with their families, or pursue education they had once thought impossible. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe. Share it with someone who could use a dose of hope today. And remember, no matter where you are in your journey, compassion and kindness have the power to transform lives.